If it feels like your body is resisting fat loss no matter what you do, there's a good chance your body is stuck in what I call fat storage mode. And in this video, I'm going to show you what that actually means, why it happens, and the 5 signals that can help your body start using stored fat again. Because most people are still trying to solve this with more restriction. They eat less, they add more cardio, they push harder in the gym, they try to burn more calories. But if your body is getting the wrong signals all day, it's not going to feel safe becoming leaner. And it's going to become more likely to actually conserve energy, hold on to fat, crave food, and it's going to make fat loss feel way harder than it should. So, this is part 2 of this short series on how to reset your metabolism and stay lean without dieting. So, to recap part 1, and you can go back and watch that if you haven't yet, but we talked about why eating less isn't going to fix your metabolism. So, we covered how cutting calories can actually down regulate your metabolism. So, your energy goes down, your training gets worse, your daily movement decreases without you even realizing it. Your digestion can slow down, which is why you can run into issues like bloating, heartburn, gas, that sort of thing. Heat production drops. So often when people cut calories, they feel cold. Their brain feels foggier, your cravings are going to increase, and your body starts trying to preserve energy because it detects that energy is scarce. So that is the first layer. But low food is not the only thing that can push your body into this conservation mode. Stress can do it, poor sleep can do it. It can be blood sugar swings, high insulin, processed food, alcohol, low movement, even things like a chaotic daily rhythm. And this is where fat storage mode comes in. Now, when I say fat storage mode, I don't mean that your metabolism is broken, and I don't mean that fat loss is going to be impossible for you. I also don't mean that there's a magic switch that turns fat burning completely on or off. But what I do mean is that your body is always responding to the environment you create and the context that you're in. And certain contexts can make your body more likely to store energy, crave food, recover poorly, and hold on to fat. And other contexts will make your body more likely to use stored energy, stabilize your appetite, recover better, and become leaner over time. So that is the difference between fat storage mode and fat burning mode. So it's not a hack and it's not about, fasting or cutting carbs or cutting calories. It's about the signals your body is receiving on a daily basis. So those repeated signals that we are sending our body. And if those signals keep saying, stress, instability, poor sleep, low movement, high insulin, processed food, poor recovery, your body's going to respond accordingly. So let's talk about what fat storage mode actually looks like. So what is this? How are you going to know that you're in fat storage mode? So obviously the first one being that fat loss just isn't happening, or it's happening slow, or maybe you lose weight, but then it comes back. And for a lot of people, it often looks like waking up tired, even after, getting a pretty good amount of sleep. It can be having to have coffee immediately just to feel like you can function and get your brain going in the morning. It's often skipping breakfast and then feeling wired later on in the day, but not energized. So, like that wired but tired feeling. It's cravings in the afternoon, which is a big one. 3 o'clock rolls around and cravings feel, impossible to overcome. It feels like needing something sweet after dinner. It can often look like belly fat that doesn't budge, even when you are doing all these things that feel like they're right. It looks like energy crashes. It can be workouts that feel harder than you think they should. It can be poor recovery. So things like muscle soreness, just not feeling good, even after a rest day, like still feeling really tired in the gym. It can also be even things like feeling inflamed, puffy, heavy, bloated, just a little bit like swollen. And the mistake most people make is that they respond to these symptoms by pushing harder. So many of my clients will come to me and, they haven't been losing the weight they want. So they just keep cutting calories. They're adding more cardio. They're eating maybe 1,400 calories in a day, which just isn't enough. And just trying to burn more calories while eating less calories. And if the body is already under stress, which it is for most people, like stress is stress, whether it comes from exercise, it comes from work, it comes from, your life, family situation, whatever it is, that's going to make the environment and that context that we talked about worse, because fat storage mode is not just about calories. It's about that internal environment your body is living in. And one of the biggest pieces of this that really drives this fat storage mode is blood sugar and insulin. So insulin is one of the main hormones that helps move nutrients out of your bloodstream and into your cells. So insulin is good. We need insulin. But the problem is that when your body is constantly exposed to high insulin levels because of the way you're eating or moving, even things like lack of sleep, a sedentary life, that sort of thing, then that's where we run into issues with how much insulin and just the chronic exposure to insulin that your body's facing. And if you're eating, a lot of ultra processed foods, you're snacking all day, you're drinking sugary drinks, you're having, refined simple carbs, you're not sleeping well, you're sitting a lot, your blood sugar can become stable. So we're going to get blood sugar spikes, then we get crashes. That results in cravings, snacking, more spikes. And this is what can really be the primary driver of this fat storage mode. So when insulin is elevated in the blood, so for context, we eat something, let's say I eat a piece of bread, my blood sugar is going to go up. It's going to be released from my pancreas to manage that blood sugar, and that's a good thing. But when that insulin is released, your body is less likely to break down stored fat in that moment, and is more likely to store that fat. So that's really where that fat storage mode is coming from. So it means that if your blood sugar and insulin are constantly being pushed up and down all day, your body's spending more time in a storage state and less time in a state where it can comfortably access stored energy and burn that fat. And this is why stabilizing blood sugar is such an important part of flipping this switch. The second major driver is stress. And this is, relevant for most people these days. We live pretty high stress lives. And this is where we can really run into some issues as well. So the main thing here is cortisol. And again, cortisol is not bad. It's a hormone. It helps us to wake up, focus, train, respond to life. But the problem is when that becomes chronic. So when your body never gets the signal that it's safe to recover. And if you think about the average high performing person over 40, they're waking up tired, they check their phone, they drink coffee before they've eaten, they rush to work, they sit there for hours, in stressful meetings, reading stressful emails, they eat something quick, they're training, going to a hard HIIT class or a cardio class or whatever, and they haven't eaten much. They're dealing with pressure all day. They come home wired, you've got your spouse, you've got your kids, they're eating late, they sleep poorly, and then they wake up and do it again. So the body is not just dealing with, a fat loss plan if we're trying to lose fat. It's dealing with pressure from everywhere. So again, like stress is stress, whether it comes from life or it comes from your training or it comes from your nutrition. And when cortisol is constantly elevated or your stress rhythm is out of sync, it can affect your hunger, craving, sleep, blood sugar, recovery, and even things like belly fat as well. Cortisol is a big driver of belly fat. So this is why some people are doing everything right on paper, but their body is just stuck. They're eating less, they're training more, but the stress signal is just too loud to overcome that. The third piece is food quality, because the food you eat isn't just calories, it's information. So ultra processed foods are easy to overeat. They send very different signals. They're, usually low in protein, low in fiber, low in micronutrients, so like vitamins and minerals. And they're scientifically designed to keep you wanting more. They can also destabilize your appetite, essentially messing up your hunger and satiety hormones. They make blood sugar harder to control, and they displace the foods your body actually needs to repair, recover, and build muscle. And sugar is a big part of this too. And you don't need to cut sugar out, but if your day is built around, sweetened coffees, sweet snacks, refined carbohydrates, desserts, processed foods, your body's going to constantly be riding that blood sugar roller coaster that we talked about. And seed oils are another big piece here in the processed food category. So the issue is not that one ingredient is going to ruin your metabolism overnight, but the issue is that when your diet is dominated by these packaged foods, fried foods, takeaways, processed snacks, low quality fats, even things like sauces as well, you create more metabolic friction. So your body has to deal with more inflammation, less nutrition density, less satiety, and less of the raw material it needs to function well. So fat storage mode is not caused by one thing. It's a result of multiple signals stacking up. So just to recap, things like low food, high stress, poor sleep, blood sugar swings, high insulin, processed food, low protein, low muscle mass, low movement, and too much sitting. Alcohol can do it, late nights, poor recovery, and even things like toxins and environmental stressors as well. The more signals that you stack, the more your body starts acting like energy needs to be stored and protected, and it's going to make it a whole lot harder to lose that fat. So we are going to go into the 5 switches, essentially, that we can switch to get your body out of that fat storage mode and into fat burning mode. So number 1 is to stabilize your blood sugar. So we've touched on this a little bit already, but this is one of the fastest ways to make your body feel like it's more in control. And this starts with how you build your meals. So we want to start with protein. We want to eat real food. So I like to call these single ingredient foods. So essentially foods that don't come with an ingredients list. So fruit, vegetables, carbohydrates in terms of like oats, rice, that sort of thing, meat, nuts, legumes, those sorts of things. We want to make sure you're also eating enough food early in the day. So really front loading that food, front loading the protein. We want whole food carbohydrates instead of constant refined snacks. Fewer random snacks between meals in general as well. Trying to just have 3 to 4 structured meals throughout the day with breaks in between. We want less sugar, less ultra processed food, and ideally we want to move after our meals. So postprandial walk where you eat your meal and then you go for like a 10-minute walk. And the point here to take note of is that carbs are not the enemy. The goal is not to cut carbs. The goal is stable energy. So a meal like a potato with protein and vegetables is going to be very different from grazing on, cookies, cereals, sweets, and snack foods all day. And eating a piece of fruit is going to be very different from having a sugary drink. Rice after training is different from sitting at a desk all day eating processed carbs out of a package. So remembering that context matters. And if your blood sugar is unstable, the first move is not to, cut calories and starve yourself. It's to build meals that are going to protect your energy. So again, protein, we want fiber, real foods, and then these healthy, intentional carbs. Now, the second way to flip the switch is to lower your stress and cortisol load. So this is where a lot of people need to stop being so aggressive with the plan that they're doing and the approach they're taking to their fat loss, because they unintentionally are actually increasing stress and cortisol. And I know that when you're not losing weight, you're not seeing progress, it's stressful, but sometimes we need to just kind of like pull back if that's an issue. So if you're already, underslept, underfed, over caffeinated, you're stressed at work or at home, and you're training hard, your body doesn't need more stress. It needs a better stress balance. And that can mean walking more instead of adding, another brutal cardio workout. This is something that people do a lot, is they just add so many HIIT workouts, they go to boot camps, whatever they're doing, and it's actually making things worse. And it might also mean going to bed earlier instead of, scrolling on your phone or watching Netflix or whatever it is. Sleep's going to be huge. It might also mean delaying caffeine instead of using it to override the exhaustion that you feel every morning. And it can be as simple as taking 5 minutes to breathe before you eat so your body can get out of fight or flight and into more of that rest and digest mode. So if cortisol is high, sleep's poor, fat loss is going to become harder to sustain. And at some point, your body needs a signal that it is safe to recover. And the third way is strength training. So we talked about this a little bit in part one from the perspective of raising your metabolic baseline. But here I want you to understand that strength training is an important way to improve how your body handles nutrients. So think of muscle like a storage site for glucose, which is blood sugar. When you have more muscle and when that muscle is being used regularly, your body has somewhere productive to put that energy in the form of the food that you eat. So strength training can actually improve insulin sensitivity, which we've touched on multiple times in this video. It helps your body move glucose out of the blood and into muscle tissue, which is really good, which means better blood sugar control, better nutrient handling, and then ultimately better body composition as well. It also gives your body a stronger reason to use energy instead of store it, which you can start to see is really important for getting your body out of this fat storage mode and into fat burning mode. And this is why cardio alone isn't enough. Like, cardio can be useful if it's strategic and done well. Zone 2 is really good. I'm a big fan of zone 2. But if you want to shift your body out of fat storage mode, you do need muscle, and you also need to use the muscle, because muscle is one of the biggest tools you have for changing the internal environment and context that controls fat loss. The fourth way to flip the switch is to reset your circadian rhythm. So this sounds really simple, but it is actually massive. So your body runs on rhythm, your hormones, digestion, sleep, appetite, energy, all of it's on a natural internal rhythm. And when that rhythm's chaotic, your metabolism is going to feel chaotic too. So we just start with the basics here. We want to get morning light. We want to wake up at a consistent time as much as we can. Eat protein earlier in the day. Stop relying on coffee as your breakfast food. Also avoid caffeine too late in the day. Train at a time your body can recover from. So don't go for a run or go to the gym at like 10 p.m. because that's not going to help your rhythm. And create a clear end to eating at night. We also want to make sure you are winding down before bed with a simple wind down routine. And all of this is, really simple, not too exciting, but these things work because they send your body a consistent message that things are calm, we have a rhythm, we have fuel, we're able to recover. And when this rhythm improves, everything starts to improve with it. It kind of just becomes this like positive cycle. So your sleep's going to improve, your cravings are going to get better, your energy is going to get better, training becomes easier, and appetite gets easier to control. And this is how you make fat loss feel like less of a fight. And the fifth and final way we are going to talk about today to flip the switch is to reduce what I call metabolic friction. So this is where we look at things that may not be the main driver, but they do make progress harder. So things like alcohol, ultra processed foods, which we've touched on, even things like plastic, poor water quality, low quality personal care products, or constant exposure to things that might disrupt hormones or increase the burden on your body. And you don't need to become paranoid because there are toxins everywhere. You're not going to avoid them all. You don't need to live in a bubble. You also don't need to throw everything out, but it's something to be aware of because, as we've talked about, your environment does matter. So, if you're eating out of plastic containers, drinking from plastic bottles, eating packaged foods, drinking alcohol, using low quality products on your skin, these things do start to add up. So, the goal is to reduce the load. And like I said, you don't have to be perfect, but just be practical. So, start swapping plastic bottles for a stainless steel or glass bottle, reduce packaged foods, reduce alcohol frequency, improve your water by filtering it, upgrade personal care products over time. So, like I say, like when you finish the current deodorant you're using, try to find one that doesn't have something like aluminum in it. Just slowly start replacing things with higher quality things because these changes may seem small, but they reduce the amount of friction your body has to work through. And when you combine that with the stable blood sugar, low stress, strength training, and better rhythm that we've just talked about, the body starts receiving a very different message. So let's put this together. Fat storage mode is not one thing, it's a pattern. It's what happens when your body is repeatedly exposed to signals that say energy is not stable, stress is high, sleep is poor, insulin's elevated, movement's low, muscle demand is low, food quality is poor, and recovery is limited. The body responds by becoming more likely to store, conserve, crave, and protect energy. And fat burning mode is also a pattern. It's what happens when your body repeatedly receives signals that say, blood sugar is stable, protein's consistent, we have muscle, stress is okay, sleep is good, daily movement's high, our rhythm is good, and our food quality is high. And that's when fat loss becomes easier because you're no longer fighting your body from every direction and you're creating that environment where your body can actually use stored energy. So if you feel stuck, I want you to stop asking, how do I burn more calories? And start asking, what environment am I creating inside my body? And again, just touching on those things: blood sugar, protein, coffee, sleep, stress, movement, strength training, food, alcohol, that sort of thing. And once you understand all of this, fat loss does become a whole lot easier. So, to recap, in part one, we learned why eating less can downregulate your metabolism. In this video, we learned why the wrong environment can keep your body in fat storage mode. And the next step is putting all of this together in a simple system that you can actually follow. Because knowing all of this is one thing, but actually putting it into your real life and implementing it is what's going to actually change your body. So, if you want help doing that, the next step is to watch the training where I show you how to structure this properly for people who want to get lean, strong, and stay that way without dieting. And in this video, it's where I'll show you how to take everything we've covered in this video and the one before and turn it into a clear plan you can actually follow. So, I go through the 5-step framework I use with all of my clients to put fat loss on autopilot and get their metabolisms firing again. So, I'll see you there.